today I'm going to show you how to make an infinity scarf. Infinity scarves are super popular right now, and it's super easy to make too. So all you're going to need is 2 yards of fabric. Now the fabric, I should say, has to be kind of drapey. You want it to drape around your neck rather than to be stiff. So you don't want like a quilting cotton. Knits work really well. Knit stretchy fabrics work really well, and silky fabrics work really well as also. So what you need is 2 yards of your fabric. Now knits and silkies and different fabrics come in different widths. So it just depends on the width of your fabric on how many scarves you can get out of it. But for 44 inches or so, you can get 2 scarves out of 2 yards of fabric. And you need the 2 yards because you want it to be really long. So that's why you need the 2 yards of fabric. So here's my width of the fabric, and this is a wide width. So I'm going to be able to get probably, and it depends on how wide you want your scarf as well. You just have to play with it after you've made one. So for this width of fabric, I think I can probably get 3 scarves out of it. So I'm just going to lay out my fabric on the table, and I can cut my fabric using either a rotary cutter. Now make sure you are really careful with the rotary cutter, and when you use a rotary cutter you have to use a special mat underneath it, and so just be really careful about that. And if you're a beginner with the rotary cutter, you will also want to use a rotary cutter ruler that comes with it, that are really wide, hard plastic rulers, so that you don't hurt yourself. But if not, you can totally use scissors. It's not a problem. So I'm just going to get my fabric laid out on the table, and then I'm going to measure the width that I want on my fabric and mark that width so that I can get the same width all the way down the length of the fabric. So I'm going to get my ruler and my marker and start marking my fabric. Okay, so I've got my ruler, and I'm going to just start measuring out from the edge of my fabric. And the edge over here on the side should be your selvage, and the selvage goes all the way the length of the fabric, and it is a finished edge. So I know that that measurement there is going to be consistent. So I think I'm going to make my scarf about 18 inches from the edge. And when it's finished, it's going to be 9 inches because, minus the seam allowance, because I will be folding this over. So I'm going to mark right there my 18 inches, and then I'm going to go up a little ways, and I'm going to mark 18 inches, and then I'm going to go up a little ways and measure my 18 inches again. And I'm going to continue that all the way up my fabric, the length of my fabric. 18 inches. And you can pull it down if you need to. 18 inches. And I'm all marked up. So now I can start cutting. So I have my rotary cutter, and I'm going to line it up with the 2 lines that I have. And this is nice fabric because it has stripes on it, so I can measure, I can line up my lines of my ruler along the stripes so that I know that I'm straight, even if my line got a little wonky. And then I can just keep pulling down my fabric and following along with my little lines right there. Keep cutting. Okay, that line got a little wonky, but I know I'm still straight because I have my lines of my fabric. And there is my piece. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew, let me get this out of the way. I'm going to sew the lengthwise seam of the fabric. So here's my big long piece. It's all tangled up. Get it all flattened out for you. And I want to do right sides together. This is my right side. So I'm going to line up and I'm going to pin along this long, long end all the way down. And I'm going to stitch this whole long end all the way down to make a big long tube. And so let us go right now to the sewing machine and I'll show you. Okay, I have my infinity scarf all pinned along the edge, and I pin perpendicular to the edge because then I can pull the pin out easily out of the fabric before I get to it because I don't want to sew over those. I have my machine set up for a straight stitch. If you're using a very stretchy fabric, then you'll want to use a narrow zigzag, a long narrow zigzag stitch, so that your stitches won't pop if the scarf stretches a little. So I'm going to do about a 3/8 inch seam, and I'm just going to start ahead here, do a back stitch, and then I'm going to just keep going. Alright, now my scarf is stitched and I'm ready to turn it right side out and show you the rest of it. I have my scarf sewn into a big long tube with my right sides together. The next part's a little tricky, but if you just watch closely, it's not that hard. So I'm going to reach down inside my tube and I'm going to keep the seam allowance right on top so I don't twist my scarf. I don't want to twist it. And I'm going to go all the way down to the other end, and at the same time I'm holding the seam at the top. Just keep holding that in one hand between your thumb and your finger, and then just keep pulling the scarf, the rest of it, up on your arm. Now with this hand I'm going to grab the seam on that side, and then I'm going to pull it up through the tube. I'm still holding the seam from the other side, so I have this kind of halfway snake here, and I'm still holding those two ends. Now I'm going to meet them together, and notice that I have the right sides of the tube met together at the top. Now I have this circle at the top and the other circle from the other part, and I'm just going to line up that opening, and I'm going to pin at the top. So I'm just going to pin all the way around this opening, this circle here. I'm going to pin around the top. Again, I'm putting my pins in perpendicular. Keep pinning all the way around. Lining that top up. both those edges until I get back around to the other end. All right, I'm all set. I have my opening all pinned, my tube, the end of my tube. I like to start right before the seam so that I don't have my opening where the seam is, because I'm going to be leaving an opening in the top part so I can turn my scarf right side out. So I'm going to start a little bit before the seam, and I'm going to just lower my presser foot and just start sewing, do a little bit of a back stitch at the beginning, and off we go. And then just be careful you don't sew all the way around. Make sure you leave that little opening there. So it's about done here. And then I'm going to cut my threads. Threads at the beginning. And now I'm ready to turn my scarf through that opening. So we're just going to turn, turn, turn. Be surprised how much scarf can go through that little tiny opening. Keep going. Okay, so I've got it all turned, and I'll show you the next step. The next step is to sew the opening closed, so we're going to just fold the edges in and do a little pin there. And I'll show you how to hand stitch that. So I'm ready to close up the hole. I have my sewing needle ready. I have thread on my needle, and I'm just going to knot the end of my thread. It's just a single thread. And then I'm going to come over here. I see I have a thread sticking out, so I want to trim that. Don't want that sticking out. And I'm just going to start over. I am left-handed, so I'm starting on the left. And I'm going to go underneath to hide my knot first inside the fabric. And there's my knot. I'm going to tuck that in. Tuck that down into the fabric to the inside of the tube. And now I have the two ends together, and I'm just going to grab a little piece on the other side, and I'm going to just keep doing that, grabbing a piece on one side and on the other side, and then pull it up. And I'm going to grab a little piece of fabric on one side and grab a piece on the other side, and then pull it up. And then keep going till I get the whole opening closed. And you're done closing your opening. You're all done with your infinity scarf. You've got your opening sewed up, and it's all set. So you can wear this so many different ways. You can wear it doubled over your neck, or you can even triple it up if it's really cold outside, and you can wear that under your jacket. Or you can have it single, a single layer, and you can tie it in a knot around your neck. And I'll see you next time. Happy sewing!